So Candace Owens goes on the Breakfast Club, which there's a lot of history of Charlamagne talking down on Candace. A lot of the black community in general talking down on Candace Owens because she's like a white black. I've heard people say a lot of shit like she's not a real black girl. She's a white black girl just because she's right leaning. She's conservative, and she's actually from less than an hour from where we live now.
Yep.
We're in Connecticut.
Good old CT.
She's from New York City. She's from New York, White Plains originally, which is like an hour and 10, 15 minutes away. And then she grew up in Stamford, which is like 50 minutes away. Yeah, around there. But like Connecticut has a section of it down here by the city where it's like super snobby and bougie and stuck up rich.
If you're from Connecticut, you know.
If you're from Connecticut, you know Fairfield County. That's where she's from. She's from all that. And you can kind of tell. It's like that bougie, stuck up, my shit don't stink, snobby attitude. But she's using that for conservative powers, which is why people don't like her. Because that type of snobby, stuck up attitude is what makes a great like lawyer and shit, a great debater or whatever. So she has that like... I should have known she's from Connecticut because she definitely has that stuck-up, snobby, Connecticut, snooty attitude. But she's very smart, and she just learned. She even is going to say that she grew up liberal, or she thought she did. But, yeah, we're just going to get it just because Charlamagne usually talks
on the other side.
Because I guess in the black community, in the black pride community, Charlamagne's like a big voice for them, and they all just like talk down to her for being not a real black woman.
Charlamagne has some wild-ass takes, bro.
I'm not a big fan. Obviously, you know, I'm Omeezy Thagod. That's just my rap name. It has no relationship to Charlamagne the God. But he's a sellout, I think. And he's just...
big words, big words.
And he's definitely a troll. 100% a troll. But we're going to check out this interview. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I mean, maybe. But just a couple parts that I want to touch on. So
yeah.
You know, I feel like I have just a very regular story. Like I said, like I was born in New York, raised in Stamford. There was nothing, you know, particularly that stood out in my childhood that made me think that I was going to go into politics. I feel like I lived into politics kind of accidentally. And I say accidentally because I thought I was a liberal my whole life. You know, I thought I was on the left my whole life and really didn't pay attention to politics in any meaningful way. And then, you know, when Trump was running for office, I didn't want to be elected. I was like, not because I thought he was a racist or a sexist, but just because I thought it was crazy to go from Obama, who had a certain decorum about him, to suddenly this sort of brash New Yorker. But I thought it was weird when all of a sudden the people that liked Trump, you know, everyone thought he was like this iconic symbol of business. He was in rap songs. Trump was a status, flipped on him in 1 second. I didn't buy the narrative that he was in the media for 3-4 decades, and suddenly you wanted me to believe overnight that he was like Adolf Hitler and a racist. So I just didn't.
That's
trust
what made
the media's...
me. I think a lot of people woke up in 2016 because of that reason. Because she said it. She was like, "You just grow up thinking you're one way because you know whatever your surroundings, your family, they just automatically vote one way." You're like, oh, I'm from the inner city. I just got to vote Democrat. Yeah. That's how they want it. They give you all this free money and shit. They use you. Like, these motherfuckers are wearing kente scarves, trying to get the black vote. I'm like, bro, this is too much. And then they do that. You just vote. But then when you actually are like, wait a minute, why am I voting this way? Let me learn about all these parties. And you look into it, you realize that the Democratic Party is not for anybody, really.
See, that's why I never into politics. That shit sounded like way too much.
But I wasn't into politics until just like you said, until Trump came in, and then I would watch like there's a Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube, and they would live stream his speeches, and I would watch that, and then the next day I'd see CNN or ABC showing that same speech that I just watched, but like emphasizing certain parts and then cutting it up different ways and saying different things, and I'd be like, nah, that's not even right. Because I just watched it live, and me seeing that firsthand, just like she said, you look into shit. You're like, all right, well, damn, why are they lying about this? And she's right because Trump was the Celebrity Apprentice. He owned Trump Towers, which how many people rented that out for venues? Mike Tyson, boxing was there how many times? Yeah, like Mike Tyson loves Trump.
Mac Miller has a song called Donald Trump.
Yeah, he was well respected, and nowadays, when you see Lil Wayne and Lil Pump and Kanye wearing MAGA hats and stuff like that, they're like, oh, you're sellouts. No, they're just smart. They just know their shit. Yeah. And they know that every black community's always loved Trump. They always have until the media said one day not to like him. for whatever reason, and it was just stupid. But she's very smart. She's gonna talk a lot about that. Let's get back.
This narrative about him, and so I decided to actually listen to what he said. I still
Actually,
didn't vote for him in 2016, but I wanted to just listen to what he actually said. And then when I saw what he was saying versus how it was being reported, I just found it to be extremely dishonest. So I started researching more, learning more. And then I got kind of angry, like, just with the lies. I do think Black Americans are intentionally manipulated emotionally by the media, and kind of kept dumb but emotional intentionally by the school system. And I started reading up on like Thomas Sowell, Shelby Steele, a bunch of Black scholars that I originally had dismissed as Uncle Toms, and irony now is I get called an Uncle Tom all the time. So I got what was coming, but yeah, and then I realized that actually I've always been a conservative. I just didn't know it. And economically speaking, of course, the conservative arguments make the most sense.
Does that bother you that people call you an Uncle Tom?
No, not at all. First off, because if they read the book, Uncle Tom was the hero. But also because I get it. How can I fault people for something that I would have engaged in for the majority of my life? I thought the same thing about Black conservatives. Like, I thought it was this betrayal, but I never actually understood it. It was just an emotional response. And I think that kind of is, if you come out of the public school system, I can't imagine how you could be a Black conservative when just the way that they even tell us our own history is just not true,
Do you think that
Not
that's
true.
true
That's
with
facts.
most people though? Like like when you think of a Trump or just anybody, you're fine with them, but then you learn like their politics, or you learn what they believe spiritually, and then you're like, you're turned off from it.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's necessarily the politics. I really do think the media plays the biggest part in it, because Trump,
100%.
as far as I know, Trump's been, maybe he used to be a Democrat, but he's been a Republican and a conservative for a long time. I mean, we know he had to have been a conservative in terms of economics. He's wealthy, so you'd be hard pressed to find someone that's wealthy and advocating for Marxist beliefs. But yeah, I just feel like it's more about the media wants power. The media has a vested interest in things politically, and they like to make us think that we're having this open conversation and we're learning the truth about people. But these are just hatchet smear jobs, libeling people, and I think deluding a ton of people to turn against their own best interests.
So were you more anti-media as opposed to being pro-Trump?
Well, no, I actually, once I actually heard what he had to say, I was like, that's a pretty solid pitch. I mean, it was his Dimondale, Michigan speech particularly. He got up there and he just started listing all of the statistics in Black America in terms of poverty. I mean, these were just real statistics that he was talking about. And his pitch was basically like, you've been giving your vote to Democrats for 60 years. Why don't you just try something different? I think that's a pretty good elevator pitch. Like, hey, we're doing this.
That's when he said, "You got nothing to lose," and everybody took that as a different way. But like, he's right.
There's so many black people in the Black community that say that Trump did a lot for them. That's why they're gonna vote for them again. Vote for him again. You know what I'm saying? He's done a lot more. They feel he's done more than Barack did, and Barack was, they all loved him.
Barack didn't do shit for the Black community.
Yeah,
he did anything at all. But that. They took, that's the one example of them taking shit like, oh, well, what have you got to lose? Like, you know what I mean? No, he didn't mean it like that. Like, he's like, listen, you've been voting Democrat for the last 60 years and nothing has changed. He's like, why not just try something new? Just vote Republican once, see what happens, see if it works, and if not, then go back. You know what I mean? And then he got in 2016. He was the sole reason that HBCUs survived COVID, because he donated the first initial $250 million. And there's just a lot to that. But
I swear
they just hate that it's a Black woman that's saying all this, because Black and woman are the two leads of liberalism, liberal idealistics, and it's just like they're like, whoa, she's like supposed to be on our side, and then she's
on the other side,
taking W's for the other side, and you guys don't know how to handle that shit. That's what it is. That's why people don't like her. She's a very smart, intelligent Black woman, and the Black community should be happy about that we have a Black woman who's that smart and intelligent, that came from Connecticut, by the way, and is in Congress and is like making these decisions, or I don't know about anymore, and she's successful, and then I hear Black people, they're like, oh, she speaks white. Like, what is speaking white? What is that?
How is that? That's not even a thing.
Like, I get sales voice, we go from, what up, to, hey, hello. Like, I get that. But is that speaking white? Or is that just speaking proper? Because white people aren't, I know a lot of white people that don't speak proper. So being proper is one thing. It's not white, Black, it's nothing. It's just speaking properly. She's an educated woman from Stamford, fucking Connecticut.
Yeah, that's how you speak when you're educated from Stanford.
Right. You guys come up here to Fairfield, Connecticut, and you will see a lot of that. You will see a lot of that, you know. But whatever, it is what it is. Bills, what time is that? Yeah, it's a couple more minutes, and then I think the other one was 9:22 to 11:22.
Same thing for a long time. I'm not saying I'm amazing, but why don't we try something different and see if it gets better for you? And then suddenly I like flipped over to CNN and it was Don Lemon's like crying. You know, I think it was I'm maybe being, but it was just they were so dramatic and they were lying about what he said. They're like, he looked you in the face and told you you were poor. Like I'm like, that's not what he did at all.
No, that's what Joe Biden did.
I'm a very curious, interested person. If I get interested in something, I will just take it all the way, read books, and I'm like, why are they doing this?
But
like,
that's literally what Biden said. Remember, he was like, poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
Yeah.
Like what? That's literally what Biden
Why are all the media companies that I believed my whole life just lying about it? Just say what he actually said and let Black Americans decide for themselves if that's a good enough pitch. They may have said no. I thought it was interesting, but the lying is something that I think is outrageous. It's gotten out of control.
I think it's worse now. I think it's worse now because not only do you have people who will just create the headlines based off what they feel you said as opposed to what you said. You have people that will just straight up manipulate your audio, manipulate your video.
They just did it to Trump recently when he had said the whole bloodbath thing for the automobile industry. Like took that and ran with it and said it's a bloodbath like in terms of like war and shit like that. That's not even what he said. And when they're actively, when they're actively trying to switch a narrative, and people still don't see that, it's baffling.
Baffling.
It's crazy.
One of the wildest things, the craziest things that people say about me all the time, and it drives me crazy because it's literally made up. They're like, Candace said racism doesn't exist. If you go find that headline of Candace says racism doesn't exist, they didn't put it in quotation marks because I never said it. They were like, Candace said racism doesn't exist because she's quote unquote never been a slave.
First of all, shout out the alkaline water. She got that pH 9.5. She knows about the alkaline too. I like her.
Words never been a slave came out of my mouth, but I never said racism doesn't exist. And it was in the context of an entire speech. The media knew that Black people were not going to go watch the speech or try to find the original speech. They were just going to read the headline and react and be like, oh my God, Candace Owens said racism doesn't exist. Like, how could she say this? She's a hypocrite. She's a liar. This happened to her in her childhood.
Yeah, you sued your high school for racism.
Cereal back there?
Where? What? I don't know. It has Nipsey's face on it. Is that cereal? This thing, you press
She's a hypocrite. She's a liar. This happened to her in her childhood.
Yeah, you sued your high school for racism.
Yeah,
so
well,
clearly,
it's actually not the. That's not what happened. I didn't sue my high school for racism.
For
But
not protecting you during that time, I said, right? I said for not protecting you. They said
just did you what the media does.
no, it's fine. I mean, I get it because it's something that I talked about at length. But essentially, I had the situation happen to me in high school where someone that I was actually best friends with left me horrific voicemails. They were racist voicemails. There's no other way to slice it.
They called you a nigga because you didn't want to date him?
No, he actually, I think he was gay, to be honest. It was nothing about dating. I think this was kind of a circumstance of like, I had my first beer. I'll be honest, I got a boyfriend and I just stopped hanging out with my friends. Very typical high school, stupid stuff.
You said something earlier. You said that you wanted to listen to what Trump had to say.
Go
You said in 2016 you still didn't vote for him. So looking at the country now, right? Of course, there's Trump, there's Biden. Who do you think is better for our community?
Obviously, well, first and foremost, just for everybody,
I don't even think that's a question.
You should have a president that's not mentally deteriorating like Biden is. I mean, he's in full mental deterioration. It's crazy to pretend anything else that's happening right now. It's scary first and foremost because we have real enemies out there, and you have a person that can't lead. He can't remember what he ate for breakfast. He's saying things. And the amount of times that he keeps talking about his dead son as if he's alive, it's very alarming.
Y'all better not elect a man who cannot stand toe to toe with other world leaders. It is not a good look. Well, re-elect a man. I should say that. It's not a good look. It's not a good look. When you got us over here, we're supposed to be the world's greatest country, world power, but we can't even stand toe to toe with a Putin. Putin will outsmart Biden in every way possible.
Trump is the only president Putin ever respected.
Yeah.
Only one.
Like, that doesn't even make sense.
I feel like other leaders
I
know
don't say that with
Biden
any
isn't a real leader. They know that there's other people behind the American presidents.
I'm sure they do.
Because the same people are probably behind them too.
Yeah.
They know it's all a game.
Will in my heart either because he's showing signs of when my grandfather, who passed a couple of years ago, started, his mind started diminishing, and you start to see those early signs of dementia. The way he walks, his gait, the way that he's falling, that this is crazy. Everyone should be outraged, whether you're on the left or the right. But in terms of the better candidate for Black Americans, I asked people the question, how were you living under Trump? The person that they told you was going to put us back into chains, and we were all going to be slaves again. How was the economy under Trump, and how are you doing today? And every time you ask that question, everyone knows that they were living better under Trump, because he was deregulating the environment, and people were just living better under Trump. And he is, in my opinion, a better president, because at least he's telling you the truth, and he's telling you what he actually thinks. One of the things that I hated the most about him when he first came on the escalator, I was like, oh, he's way too brash. Obama sounds way more polite. But I asked the question, do you want to be politely lied to, or have somebody that's at least telling you what they think about you in no uncertain terms?
Do you want the ugly truth or the beautiful lie?
I think the ugly truth, bro.
That's it.
You can do more with the ugly truth.
People just don't know shit about shit.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, Obama was only this much black. He was more Muslim than anything. His name
says it all.
Barry Hussein. Fuck. His last name was some shit. Soretto?
Will they tell us in Google?
I don't know, maybe. But his name isn't Barack. His middle name is Hussein, and he's a plant. He's a CIA plant. Nobody knew. He was never in politics. Nobody knew him as a senator. Nobody knew him as anything. He just was planted in there, and that's it. And him and his husband Michael, and they're even he said it. Even he slipped up and said it. Me and my husband Michael, we go find that shit.
We're trying to keep to it.